Hello, Robin here, and welcome to the Unforgettable Faces Project. This is the woman in a Cloche hat. I'm going to start right into it. We're going into some prepared paper with gesso, and the drawing has been covered in a mold making mask that I use instead of a more expensive product. Galleria matte medium I'm going to use with the stamps, and it's going to help create a barrier or resist that will show you later on as I add color to it. So I'm not sure who made these stamps. I'm sure someone can tell me, but I'm not sure who made these stamps. And as I picked them up in a secondhand store, I picked up a whole pile several years ago. So I'll be adding the honeycomb, I'll be adding butterflies and flowers and things that I've been inspired by her. As you can probably figure out, I'm in Ecuador, and I am now once again in a second lockdown, and it is another, I don't know, stressful moment. So I'm going to use my art to help me deal with some of the stress that's involved with being under lockdown for a second time. Here we're out, drivers are no longer really allowed to be out very much. You have to have certain license numbers that can be out at a certain time, and certain taxis can be out and stuff like that. But overall, we're under a full lockdown again with restrictions. So I'm going to be using Graphitint from Derwent as the colors for the background, and they're marvelous. I don't know if you have a chance to use them, but they're a lot of fun. And it is, here we go, there's some motorcycles out there in the background. But the Graphitint is graphite mixed with a color, a watercolor, and you get these grungy, really nice colors that are really earthy. And they don't come off very bright, they're kind of dull, but that's what makes it really great. I have a full set of these, as you can see, and I haven't used them in a while, so it's a lot of fun to resurrect them, if you will. And I've chosen colors that I think are going to really complement her. So I've got some purples and blues and some greens, and I'm leaving it just like that. We're going to add water in a minute, and then they will really start to bloom. I hate using the word activate because when you put it on paper, it's already active. So maybe what I like to say is that when you add water, it blooms. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to have some fun making it do that. But for now, let's get a good solid ground underneath base so that when I add the water, it's going to have enough to really give it a good color. It's not going to be washed out. And here we go. We're going to add a little bit of, I'm deciding, that's pretty good. So now let's just add some water. And this is the fun part. This is where you get to see it come alive. I'm going to be using just typical spray bottle of water, and see it already. It starts to move and vibrate. It changes its intensity. It spreads and fills in all the gaps in the paper. And just playing around and spreading it around and seeing what will happen and letting it flow, because watercolor really does like to flow, and you have to let it do that and not get in its way. So adding water and playing around, it's great. This is a lady I met in a park, and I saw in a park, and I saw her from a distance. So for me, it's a wonderful opportunity to honor the people that live here, and I just am so fascinated by people. So here we go. We're going to add some alcohol. This is going to be a lot of fun because it's like an explosion, a firework. Look at that. It just opens up the color and brings the paper back to life as well. And I'm going to add some contrast stamps so that it complements the resisted stamps below. And I'm just going to use whatever color I have for stamp. Again, these are stuff I've got at the secondhand store for the most part. So it's been a lot of fun. Removing the mask is a stretch and pull, and that way, this is how I do it. It's my way of doing it. And I find that this way is easier for me so that I don't rip the paper underneath. It also helps to have the gesso below to preserve it. I'm going to be using my favorite Winsor Newton watercolor markers, and I'm also going to be using the Letraset Aqua markers. Here's all of the colors I've got, and I have all these colors because although I loved Winsor Newton but they don't have enough color choices. And I'm one of those people who likes to use all sorts of colors. I'm not on a color restriction diet, so I don't have to have just a limited palette. I love it all, and I want to use them all because I love them all. So you'll see me having large quantities of color. It's not that I can't do it, it's that it's more fun to use it all. I'm refining the lines because as you pull off the resist to the mask, you'll find, or I have found, that it leaves a rugged outline. So I've added some colors to the hat, and I will continue to add on colors to the hat throughout the painting because as her face shows up, I'll need more contrast or more intensity from it. The interesting thing about this fabric, that the ribbon on her hair and the hat, is that in the light the circles shine white, and in the dark light, in the shadows, those embroidered circles shine black. So I got to play with Q-tips or cotton buds, I guess, and then bring back with a darker color in the shadows, and it to be also that interesting embroidery that goes on. It was a lot of fun actually, because it was a real stress to see how I could pull that off, and it worked out quite well. I'm dabbing up as I go along and making sure I don't contaminate my markers, because as you run into other markers or other colors, you can do that with your markers. So playing with the brushes, and I'm using my hacked brush that I use here. That's a really cool thing. You can see that on a video prior to this. And now I'm going to go and add some more, although I'm not completely happy with this hat, I'm going to start to add more colors with her, and I'm using my Escoda brush here. Beautiful, beautiful brush. It is natural hair, so it does last really, like, these should last my lifetime of these brushes, and I'm really excited that I got them. Some people don't like that, but there are different points of why you have a nylon brush and why you have natural hair brushes, and all have their reasons. So I respect your reasons, and hopefully you'll respect mine too. I use both brushes depending on what's going on, and refining her face and refining what I really want to focus on, which is that beautiful gaze and her beautiful profile. And as we go, I'm going to develop more and more, and I'm going to start to see that that hat just isn't doing it. It needs more. I need to bring her focus of her beautiful gaze and her strong features. It's going to take a little bit of focusing on around her to make that impress. So as you can see, I use my blow dryer. I use my blow dryer because it controls where the watercolor goes better and makes solid the bottom layers. And as you can see, I'm darkening, taking brave steps and actually taking it directly from the marker itself, rather than using that plastic palette where I can pick up lighter levels of the color. And this is where you start to go, ooh, did I do the right thing? I don't know, I'm a little afraid, and you have to go past the fear. And I go past this fear, and every time I do a painting, I think I'll never be able to do another one again. So I just go through that insecurity and I push through. And it's always that dark step. So as you can see, I'm using one of the Aquash water brushes, and this brush is trashed. And I'm a very careful person with my stuff, and that brush, I've had it for quite some time, and it's really only good for blending. And so that's what this brush is, this brush is used for. And I can put the dots down, and as I put the dots down, I can use that dauber to help spread out the color. As you can see, I decided that I didn't like the color of the hat. It wasn't contrasted enough, but I needed to see some base color from her before I could make the next step of making it darker and richer, which is what's going to happen. The importance of a painting like this is not necessarily to capture exactly what the photo does. The most important thing is to capture the sense or the feeling. And I'm making some artistic choices on to do that. So although it's not exactly the same colors or the same perfection of a photo, if I wanted a photo, I'd keep that photo. So I'm using my artistic idea and eyes to what I want to focus on. I don't want to focus on the hat. I want to focus on her face. So I'm using just enough texture and just enough contrast so that, yeah, the hat looks really interesting, but it's her face that I'm focusing on. It will draw, the hat and the sweater and the background will draw you to what I want you to, which is her face, her absolute beautiful face. And we have some beautiful faces here in Baños, in Ecuador, but all over the world. And all times of your life, you have moments where they all need to be celebrated. So that's what I'm doing. The Unforgettable Faces Project is just that. Eventually, hopefully, through my walks through town, I'll be able to find those people. And I do often walk around with my portfolio and my camera, and I try to get them back to the original painting, back to the owners, so they can celebrate their point in time with their families. And I give it to them. I don't ask for anything. I just want to say thank you for making my world a better place here living in Baños or wherever I am at the time. And you can see I'm starting to, I'm going, look at this thing, this brush is terrible, but it is only really good for blending. And that's one of the things about these plastic brushes, is that they are plastic and they will die. And so the little brush you'll see here is a blend, is my hack. The one with the gold band on it is a hack with natural hair, and it works beautiful. And this brush that I have has been used for over 4 years, and you can't even tell. And that brush that you saw me use from Cloche was used for less than 2 years, and it's already garbage. So it can only be used for one thing. Now here you can see that there's a line that comes down her face, and that is actually in the picture, in the photo, and it's where the sun comes and shows her intense gaze, and I just love that. So that's why that line, as you start to see it, you'll see that it does work with the face. Oh, these faces are so gorgeous. I love them. Every painting I start to fall in love with each person, and they already struck me when I see them, but then when I paint them, it's another falling in love process. So there you go. I'm using my art to help me get through this rough time, and that's how I deal with it. Most of crises in my life, I've always painted, and it helps me. It's a part of my coping mechanism, so I'm sharing this with you. I'm going to start to play with this blue of the sweater, and it's taking me a little time here because I'm going through thoughts on how many blues I want to use, and how this is the difference between Winsor & Newton and the Lettres set, is that I get so many options and I can play a lot more with this blue. And I'm deciding here what those complement colors will be, and also what will be the common colors. So the shadows are one thing and the lights are another, and I try to keep the harmony of the shadows to be the commonality where it gives you that harmony. There is some blue in her face, although you can't necessarily see it as easily. There is blue and purples in her face, and there's also my favorite, the Payne's gray. I don't know why I love it so much, but it works great for me as shadows. And I found that, like a lot of other artists did, oh, I really like playing Payne's gray. Oh, I can use it for shadows, and it just seems to work really well. Not always, but in this case, it does for me. And ends up being a preference thing for most artists. So we're coming to the fun part of this, where I'm actually I'm deciding how far to go with the detail on the sweater. And I realize that I don't want a ton of detail here, because if I do that, then I'm going to take your attention away from the thing that's most important to me, and that's her gaze, her beautiful face. So I'm going to go really easy and light and keep the main shapes and use the color to draw your face there. Sometimes I use I add a lot of details to sweaters and things like that, or hats and things. But in this case, I made an artistic choice to keep it fairly soft and not as focused. So here we are. Oh, don't worry, I'm not adding, I'm not coloring on her face or her hat. I actually got a piece of plastic down there. So that's adding as my blue palette. I didn't want it to mix up with my other stuff. So don't worry, that's not a part of the painting and I haven't ruined it. So hopefully you'll understand that, like my husband did eventually. He always used to think I would say, look at that beautiful face, and he would say, oh my gosh, you're looking at a guy. And then he'd look at it, at the person I was looking at, and he realized that I was looking at a beautiful face. And it wasn't his competition, it was a beautiful face. And so my whole life I've been looking at these beautiful faces, and I get to draw these or paint these. So it's a joy for me. As you can see, I'm going to finish the day with signing my name. And as I sign my name, I say thanks to the person for letting me draw them, and hopefully I'll be able to find them. And I do that mantra every time as I sign a painting. And here we are, we're done for the day. And hopefully if you like this video, you'll be able to decide to subscribe and come and see more in the future. And there you go, we're done. And the unforgettable face is here for today. The woman in a cloche hat. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Stay safe in this crazy time, and please subscribe and hit the bell icon, and we will see you in the future. Bye-bye.